So as usual with Subnautica videos, beware spoilers, spoilers beware. Stop now if you don't want to get spoiled. I'm going to run you through here an exploration of something that you come across which is actually quite unexpected. I think it was unexpected for me anyway, because here I'm in my sea moth heading towards what I thought was the Aurora rendezvous site, which unusually, of course, in this particular environment is on dry land. It turns out that the dry land is actually an island which is held up by these ancient floaters, which are huge versions of the ones that you normally encounter that are much, much smaller. But that isn't the end of the story, because as you'll see if you listen carefully in a little while, the sensors that you have on you immediately detect that there is something of interest on the island beyond just your rendezvous point. So I'll just wait until I've sort of wandered around on the surface for a little while, but I can't overstate how important this particular location is in terms of setting you up for the game as a whole, because you only start off with certain blueprints, and the only way you can get more is by discovering more, or by discovering examples of things that allow you to scan them in order to reverse engineer blueprints from them. And this is why this is such a critical place to come to. So I'll just let you watch this for a little while, and I'll come back and join you.
Picking up multiple energy signatures on the island's surface.
So you can see that I'm pretty much due south of the stern of the Aurora here, and I found a nice sandy beach to get out onto, and multiple energy signatures have been reported. Now, at this point, I've got no idea what that means. I'm just still trying to head for the rendezvous point, and as you can see, this is where the game gets really interesting, because it's got a sort of fully developed land area here with various vegetation, and it's just sort of generally mixing it up. So adding more depth. Let's see.
Integrating new PDA data.
We have to board the Aurora, repair the long-range comms, make contact with the other survivors. We can't be the only two that made it.
Those are not the orders the captain gave me, and they are not the orders I'm giving you.
This isn't chain of command, it's survival.
My obligations as acting commander don't turn on their convenience. Get out of the water.
If I get into trouble, I'll send you my coordinates.
I can't let you go alone.
Then come with me.
You don't leave me much choice.
Received emergency transmission from Second Officer Keen, 2 hours after last activity.
Rendezvous was a failure. Intercepted a transmission from Altera HQ. Seems they sent a data package to the Aurora. We were intercepted by a Leviathan-class Predator before we could reach the ship. Consider the CTO and I lost at sea. Be safe. Keen, out.
So we can see that the rendezvous failed, basically. The only two crew members who got there tried to get back to the Aurora, I think, from this location, and failed to do so, and we were to assume that they were lost. So you can see that I'm sort of finding what are very sort of loose looking paths on the island, and these are there to help you navigate basically, and will give you a reasonably safe paths to travel. Here for the first time I'm actually able to get resources from land plants, and that's a fairly sort of big deal because that hasn't happened before, because obviously there's been no land before. So here we have vegetation that we can actually exploit for survival purposes. But of course I'm missing a critical ability here, and that is the ability to plant anything. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you may already have spotted the fact that there is something unusual on this island, and we'll explore that in a moment.
Vital signs stabilizing.
So you can see that up on the tops of these hills are some decidedly unnatural looking objects. So these are things that you're going to want to explore, because these are pretty critical items for reasons that will become apparent. And really this is one of the more sort of significant ways in which the game leads you to explore its storyline, basically. I mean, it's pretty sort of open world up until this point, and it still is. You can totally ignore these if you so choose to, but you'll be shooting yourself in the foot, basically, if you do completely ignore them. You can see here, I think I'm just trying to make life as difficult as possible for myself and trying to find a way up to the top of the hill. Just have a little look around the view. It's pretty. I mean, it's well done. It reminds me a little bit of sort of Fortnite, actually, in terms of all this stuff is purely sort of incidental, but it's nicely thought out. So I know where I want to get to. I'm trying to figure out how best to get there. But you can see there's there's lighter soil here, and it's kind of leading you up. So if you just follow these paths up, that's probably your best bet, really, for keeping on the right track. Because you can take fall damage if you land on dry ground. If you fall into the sea, you're fine. But so this, of course, looks a hell of a lot like a rusted habitation module collection, and we're about to find out why. And notice that you can scan elements of this, and in scanning this you'll actually get new elements for your own bases that you can then build for yourself. So, as ever, scan everything, basically. So lots of really basic stuff around here, but worth not rushing it.
Integrating new PDA data.
And so now we're getting, diary entries from people all of a sudden out of the blue. So we have I had no idea what this was all about. But it turns out that there was another ship.
After all that time in the deep, I'd been dreaming of it. Now that I'm back here, I'm finding it hard to enjoy alone. Father was right. We should never have left this place. We shouldn't have gone so deep. They do not want us down there. Despite my best efforts, ill health is taking hold of me. The visions are getting worse. Marguerite and Father are now part of the ecosystem of this incredible planet. It's reassuring to know that when I go, I'll join them. Until then, well, there's always the view.
New blueprint acquired.
So there we've just discovered that our crash on this planet was not the first crash on this planet, and there were other people on the planet before us, and this was their habitation. And that voice message indicates that they had had sea bases, but this guy Bart had come back here having been in a sea base. And what I've been scanning here whilst I was listening to that is pretty critical for you, because it basically means that you can grow produce using these grow beds that you discover here. And you can take the seeds from these plants and replant them in your own grow beds. And lo and behold, you now have a means of getting food and water from the same source indoors that you can reliably control and produce. So, as of this point, you are basically fine in terms of food and water, because you can get both from the same source and replenish it at will. Just requires a few units of titanium to make the grow beds, so really you're laughing, which is why it's so important to come here. But you're also getting a lot of really interesting backstory, which, as I say, I had no idea of before I got to the island, in that it's not just about you surviving, it's about finding out how others survived before you, and of course that gives you more information generally about your environment and about the challenges that they faced. And later on in the game you can sort of start to draw suppositions about what they might have gone through and what they might have experienced. But I'll leave you to sort of to watch the rest of it. All I would encourage you to do here basically is be very, very careful about scanning everything. As you can see here that I found a bulkhead, and that's not a really obvious thing, but you just got to keep an eye on your bottom right corner of your screen to see when you get clues for what you can scan, because a bulkhead will give your base a lot more structural integrity for relatively little cost. So it can be a really important thing to have on board in terms of having the blueprint for it. So scan everything as ever, but also keep your eyes open for what you can scan, because there's probably more around than you think. And if you don't want to watch this entire video, I will tell you that there are 3 Degassi, which is the name of the ship, 3 Degassi locations on this island. There's another one like this, which is at the top of the other hill. There's also one down in a valley, and that will give you some more information and some more resources that you can scan. It's also got the marble melons, which are very, very good sources of food and water. And there are other plants available as well, so you can grow them all. It's really at your discretion, what you prefer to grow. Just watch how you go when you're going up and down the hills, obviously, because as I mentioned before, you will take fall damage from relatively slight falls. You'll survive most of them, but it will start to degrade your health if you're not a little bit wary. You can skid downwards fairly easily. That's not really a major issue, but just be wary is all I would say. So by the time you've explored this island, you could make a base on it yourself if you chose to. Plenty of solar power available here. And obviously plenty of planets to exploit if you so chose. Is it a convenient place to be? Not massively, but obviously you'll never have to worry about oxygen. So that's certainly one sort of advantage, if you like. And very easy to put grow beds and stuff down. There's quite a lot of open ground here. You don't have to worry about predation. So in that sense, yeah, it's quite a safe place for a base. It's just not massively well placed for the map as a whole. If in case you're wondering, I think the reason why there are bases right up on the hilltops is because the first time they made a base here, when they first crashed, it got washed away in a storm. So I imagine that when he came back, he actually based himself up on the hilltops on the high ground so that he could avoid that problem from happening again. But when he got back, he was quite poorly. So I don't think we ever actually find out exactly what happened to him. We just assume that he's passed away from natural causes ultimately. So I'll stop talking now, because otherwise I'll be talking for quite a long time. It'll get tedious. And obviously, by all means, follow me around on here, see what else there is on the island, and then go and explore it for yourself if you're new to the game. I don't think there's anything else I can think of that's radically groundbreaking. If I'm going to watch the rest of it myself, because I haven't watched it for a while. This is part of one of my much longer videos that I use for raw material. So if I get to another interesting point, I'll jump in again. But otherwise, I'll just leave you to watch it for now. Cheers.
Integrating new PDA data.
This island is a godsend. Look out of the window. No predators, fresh food.
No building materials, nothing left of the ship. And your kid says we're gonna starve without more grow beds. Speak up, kid.
It's true, Father. The natural growth rates are too slow to keep supporting us.
All I'm saying is Ocean's got us surrounded. No use hiding. Sooner or later, we'll get our feet wet.
The rest of your life may have been a fight, Maida, but I've made my decision. You want to forfeit your emergency pay to take a swim? Go ahead.
Believe me, I'm thinking on it.
New blueprint acquired.
Hello again. I'll just say a little bit about the exterior grow bed, because that allows you to plant things outside of your sea bases. That's quite important as well, because it means that you can plant aquatic plant seeds right next to your base, which means that you can then harvest a lot of stuff that is just, scattered all over the place in one place, and that's quite handy. Obviously there's this mysterious purple tablet here that you can grab, and that'll come in useful later in the game, if you haven't already discovered one.
Integrating new PDA data.
What is that thing?
I don't know. I found it outside in the sand.
Part of another ship?
None I've ever seen.
It's not even scratched.
Don't fool around with it. It might be worth something.
Stand down, Chief. If it were gonna crumble to dust, it would have done so when I picked it up.
It's glowing.
We're not the first people to come to this planet.
People. Maybe. Could be aliens. Could be the damn sea monsters for all we know. One thing for sure, we ain't gonna find out by staying here.
Integrating new PDA data.
Chief's log, 5 weeks since the crash. The only other survivors are my son, Bart, and Maida, the cut-price mercenary I commissioned for the journey. After days drifting in the life pod, rain hammering on the roof, the weather cleared and we washed up here. I had Maida salvage the Degazi wreck, set Bart to finding us a stable source of food. His education is paying off sooner than I'd anticipated. Our only problem is Maida. She says the weather's going to turn. I say she's finding excuses to risk our lives. I imagine she's not gonna weaken her life without a physical altercation, and she's itching for a fight. In every judgment she makes, things go from bad to worse. If she had my experience, she'd have more faith. Humans have spent millennia specializing in how to shackle nature to our will. This planet won't cause us any new problems. My one task now is to keep us alive, as comfortably as possible, until the insurance company arranges rescue. In this part of space, that could be months, or even years.
Integrating new PDA data. New blueprint acquired.
I'm not actually aware that we ever find any wreckage from the Degassi, unless it's part of the general wreckage that we find. I'm just not aware that we ever actually see it. So that in and of itself is quite interesting, because I don't think it was a ship on the size of the Aurora's class of ship, which was obviously designed to build stargates, as we know. So it's kind of, the Aurora was I'm guessing bigger than average. So all we really have is the fragments that are left on this island, I guess, which are just it's sort of standard habitat modules. They're not anything special. But if you do happen to know, if there are Degassi specific elements, do leave a comment. I do remember I did once see a piece of wreckage that had a green coloration to like a green stripe. I'm not sure if that's Aurora standard, so I did half wonder whether or not perhaps that was a piece of the Degassi. I'm just not sure, but the Aurora got information on the Degassi survivors, of course, because it was a sort of secondary mission for it to go and hunt for them. So it's not always clear as to whether or not the information that you see is coming from the Aurora's files or possibly even Degassi files. But I haven't seen a sort of sign of a distinct alternative ship. So it would be interesting to know that, because in that last message it mentions that they did salvage the Degassi. So maybe they just completely broke it down, it's possible. In which case, obviously there wouldn't be anything left salvage-wise or wreck-wise for us to look at. But it's all interesting backstory, and for me that's what makes this a really interesting game, is that they were thoughtful enough, they put enough soul into it that they actually didn't just sort of go for the easiest option. They actually put some proper interesting backstory in, which helps you in your exploration of it, and helps you guard against certain things. Interesting as well that they mentioned that there was a rainstorm, because they talk about rain lashing down and hitting the life pod roof. So that's not something that I've ever encountered in the game. There is no weather. And actually I was thinking the other day about, wouldn't there be waves? Because there seems to be quite a few large bodies around, which I would have expected to exert a gravitational pull on 4546b, which presumably would then lead to waves being formed. And you don't see big waves. You see a bit of a swell, obviously, but not like really big waves or tides. So it's interesting. I'm sure there may well be logical explanations for why you wouldn't see that. Possibly because obviously all of it's underwater, and the ancient floaters will probably just keep you at surface levels so you wouldn't get tides. Because strictly speaking, I suppose the islands aren't static. They kind of go up and down a little bit with if the water level did change. So yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, you can take as much time as you want, really, running around the island, seeing what's on it, and then think about how you want to progress from there. But certainly, if you want a little safe haven, you want to catch some rays, then I mean, sunbeams now, not the actual fish. Then just chill out here for a bit. But there are there aren't any resources beyond the food really here, and beyond sort of the basic information you can gather from the wreckage. I don't think there's a great deal else on here, so you'll be better off spending more time underwater rather than on top of it. But obviously that's entirely up to you.
aboard, Captain.
So just one last comment from me here. You can see here I'm just heading back to my main base, and I'm using a camera as my reference point, because when you create scanner rooms, you create two cameras at the same time, and they actually show up as the equivalent of beacons on your HUD. So actually they're quite a useful way to navigate back to your base if you remember which numbers of cameras are attached to your base. The irritating thing is that the stalkers can actually steal them if they're in the area, and then they take them away and they swim with them, so that can be quite confusing. So that's just a little ancillary tip there for you. Don't put your cameras near stalkers. So thanks for watching if you've got this far, and I shall carry on making some more vids. Cheers.